Of that landing shortly here.
Falcon 9 first stage successfully landed.
And there you can see on your screen, Falcon 9 has landed. This is the first Falcon 9 to carry humans to orbit, so very exciting for us. And as you can see on your right screen, Bob and Doug are still making their way to their targeted orbit.
M1D to recovery 1.
So exciting today.
M1D.
It doesn't stop.
It does not stop.
All right, we did hear again that call out, good orbital insertion, so that means Falcon 9 and Dragon right now exactly where they're supposed to be.
M1D to FRC on recovery 1.
And it's right at about 12 minutes when Dragon will separate. Looks like we saw a 0G indicator floating around there. I know Bob and Doug owe us a little bit about what exactly that is that they brought up with them.
Dragon separation confirmed.
Countdown 1 is unmerged.
Separation confirmed.
And there's that call out. Dragon is now officially making its way to the International Space Station today.
Dragon SpaceX with that separation call. We have a few words for you from our Falcon 9 team.
Standing by.
Dragon, Chief Engineer on Dragon to ground. Bob, Doug, on behalf of the entire launch team, thanks for flying with Falcon 9 today. We hope you enjoyed the ride and wish you a great mission.
Thanks, Bala. Congratulations to you and the F9 team for the first human ride for Falcon 9, and it was incredible. Appreciate all the hard work, and thanks for the great ride to space.
Copy all.
Bala and Mike, proud of you guys and the rest of the team. Thank you so much for what you've done for us today, putting America back into low Earth orbit from the Florida coast.
Copy all. Good luck. Godspeed.
Well, everyone, welcome aboard Dragon. My name is Doug. Next to me is Bob. You probably know him. We're so glad to be with you this evening and welcome you on board Dragon. Got a couple things we want to talk about first before we kind of show you around. The first is kind of a tradition we've had over the years with spacecraft going way back to the Mercury era. And then a tradition that's been carried on ever since with all our space vehicles, including the Soyuz. We're given the honor to name this capsule. I know most of you at SpaceX especially know it as Capsule 206, but I think all of us thought that we could maybe do a little bit better than that. So without further ado, we would like to welcome you aboard Capsule Endeavour. We chose Endeavour for a few reasons. One, because of this incredible endeavor NASA, SpaceX, and the United States has been on since the end of the shuttle program back in 2011. The other reason we named it Endeavour is a little more personal to Bob and I. We both had our first flights on Shuttle Endeavour, and it just meant so much to us to carry on that name. That's what we decided to go with. So we hope you enjoy that name, and once again, welcome on board.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome aboard Endeavour, the SpaceX vehicle headed to the International Space Station. Today, we accomplished the first flight off the Florida coast in quite some time, and Doug and I were really proud to have an opportunity to be a part of that. We're doing it in a brand new spaceship, a spaceship that's a lot different than its namesake Endeavour, the space shuttle, in that it has touch display screens that allow us to accomplish most of the interfacing requirements that we have. We'll have a Doug pans over and points at the display in front of me, you can see the forward view that we had during the maneuvers that we most recently did. You can look out the window. It looks like the centerline camera doesn't have a lot of content on it now. We're kind of pointed into space so that the windows can see the Earth below us. But we've got the capability to interface with the vehicle, and it's kind of interesting. There's a command. This little button over here is actually what the commands are for our displays. One thing that does get lost is there is a extensive button panel down below as well. So over on this side, we can turn the displays on and off, as well as send some commands for some contingency situations. On the other side, we have the ability to deploy chutes and things like that on entry. So we do have some buttons, but the primary interface is these displays. So nice, new, modern cockpit that we've got for our compared to our namesake, the Space Shuttle Endeavour. I'm going to migrate a little bit away from our seats here, and Doug from his seat is going to continue to try to follow me so you can tell what can be seen from the seat that he sits in. So from his seat, when he is inside in the vehicle, strapped in, this is what his view actually looks like. You can see a window off to the one side. We each have a window that we can view out and see what's going on outside. That was exciting on ascent for us to be able to see the arm rotate away from the pad, and that's when we both, I think, knew that we were going to launch today. So that was super cool. I've got one on my side as well. The hatch that we came in is the hatch that's right behind me. It is a little bit of a tight quarters, but I'm going to try to demonstrate some of the capability that we have now that we're in zero gravity. So I think I was requested to do a backflip. I'm going to kind of do a side spin, which is a little bit of a permutation on that request. So hopefully you can see what it's like to actually float in zero gravity. And Doug and I are super excited that we got the opportunity to do this again today, even before the end of May. So that was super cool. We did, it turns out, end up with one stowaway on board our vehicle when we launched today. It was not just Doug and I who accomplished the launch here. We do have an Apatosaurus aboard. We both have two boys who are super interested in dinosaurs, and we collected up all the dinosaurs between the two houses, and Trimmer, the Apatosaurus, got the vote from the boys to make the trip into space today with us. And so that was a super cool thing for us to get a chance to do for both of our sons, who I hope are super excited to see their toys floating around with us on board. I'm sure they would rather be here given the opportunity, but hopefully they're proud of this as well.
Okay, as we work our way towards one of the windows, unfortunately it's getting a little bit dark, but I don't know if Bob can pan over here. We just passed off of the coast of Newfoundland, and we're headed over to over the Atlantic right now. I don't know if you can get a good picture of that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoy that view as we pass over the Atlantic. And I think with that, we will work ourselves back into the seats and wrap things up for this evening. So Doug's there making a nice big smile for the camera. I hope you enjoyed the trip today with us on board the Dragon Capsule Endeavour with our friend Trimmer, the Apatosaurus, and Doug and I, we just would like to thank SpaceX
SpaceX. We'd like to thank NASA, and we'd like to thank the American people for the opportunity today. And we're really proud of the entire team that was able to accomplish human spaceflight again from the Florida coast. Just a wonderful experience. Doug and I are just so proud to be a part of it, and just want to thank everybody who gave us this opportunity and worked so hard to make this happen today.
So with that, I think it'll be good night from Capsule Endeavour. Good night to everyone at NASA, at SpaceX, and the United States, and congratulations to the teams that got us into orbit. And we're looking forward to seeing Chris Cassidy and his Russian colleagues on board the International Space Station tomorrow morning.
Good night, Megan and Theo.
And Karen and Jack.
Makes me smile every time. The big events of May 30th, 2020, when we returned human spaceflight to American soil.
Yeah. What I was thinking, when Bob does that side spin, that modified backflip, he hasn't done this in 9 years,
right?
I guess it's like riding a bike, he just gets up there and he's used to spinning and maneuvering around like that. He's still got it,
They look like they're feeling really well.
Oh yeah, they look great, they look happy,
And it looked like a smooth ride up too. You got to see some of those in-cabin views. Just an amazing shot, to really be on the journey with them and to sit kind of over their shoulder and to see the panels as they're seeing them.
Right, they give the walk around and it looked very spacious in there. And one reason is, the Dragon, there weren't enough seats on there right now, but the Dragon capsule can be configured to hold 7 people. So it can get really busy up there at the ISS in the next couple of years, and just adding more seats, and I guess have a, someone could be in that view that we saw right behind their shoulders, right?
That's exactly what we want. I want to see more people in space, so bring it on. So the crew is asleep right now, and once they wake up in the morning, we will have a number of events that will eventually lead to what we are so looking forward to, that docking, targeted for about 7:30 a.m. Pacific. But there are still a couple of milestones to occur while the Dragon crew is still asleep. And the first of those is that the space station crew will wake up. Currently living on the space station, we have 3 people. One is NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, there on the far right side of your screen. He's the commander of the International Space Station right now. And he's joined by Roscosmos cosmonauts Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Wagner. Also, before the Dragon crew wakes up, Dragon will perform the 4th maneuver known as the transfer burn. This is where we're raising Dragon's apogee, or the highest point of its orbit, to just 2.5 kilometers below the station. And so we've already had that little view of Dragon. Right. Can you imagine when we get...
Oh, it's right there, yeah.
Just a little bit closer. I think that hopefully we'll have a good view.
Exactly, right.
So at about 1:45 a.m. Pacific time, it'll be time for everybody to wake up.
Yeah, SpaceX has chosen a particular song to be played to the wake up, to the team to wake them up as kind of like a wake up anthem. It's a tradition. Typically, the astronauts don't know what they're going to be woken up to. We don't know yet either. But at 1:45 a.m. Pacific time, we'll hear it first. Leah, what would you say? If you could choose for these guys, what would you play? What would be your song for these guys? Have you given any thought yet?
Oh, I mean, I can choose a song for myself, but I can't.
Yourself.
Okay, for myself. It's a tie, but they're at number 1, so I have to say them both.
Okay, right.
It's either got to be Million Pieces by Bastille.
All right, yeah.
Because that gets me just excited and going.
Song, right.
Or Good Life by OneRepublic.
Oh, that's good.
Because can you imagine waking up on a spaceship? That's a good life.
That's good, yeah.
What about you?
I was thinking, you got to lean into the nerdy stuff. I would play that intro to Star Wars, where the letters, where the title comes up. Just play that, get them pumped up. Don't forget where you're at,
That's the closest you would be to living Star Wars.
That's it.
So
right now,
might
in this
as well
day and
start
age.
the movie.
Exactly, right, yeah. And so after they're woken up, there is one more burn they're going to be awake for. It's the final co-elliptic burn. This once again maintains a constant orbit beneath the station, and they'll rest at just 2.5 kilometers below the ISS's position. Then we pivot over to the approach initiation and final stages of Dragon's rendezvous with the ISS. This is also when we start joint operations between the Dragon Control team here in Hawthorne and the space station flight controllers in Mission Control Houston. The teams will transition to integrated operations about 45 minutes prior to that approach initiation.
Yes, it is all about teamwork. So during the approach, SpaceX flight controllers here in Hawthorne, who have been working all day and are still working into the night, will work in tandem with the NASA team in Houston to activate and test out a number of systems on Dragon, including the bidirectional communications with the space station. That's the C2V2 system, and it stands for Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles. This will set up a data stream from Dragon to the station and provide another path for Dragon telemetry to come to the ground. It also gives an additional command capability to astronauts aboard the station. We'll maneuver Dragon to the proper attitude and initialize the navigation sensors that'll be needed for our very slow, methodical approach to the space station.
Right, and that C2V2 is very important. We don't want Doug and Bob to have to talk to SpaceX, and then SpaceX talks to Houston, and Houston talks to the ISS back and forth. We want them to be streamlined and talk to each other as they go through these waypoints we're about to talk about. At 5:27 a.m. Pacific time, the Draco thrusters on Dragon, which control it, will fire for the approach initiation burn. Once again, at this point, Dragon's 2.5 kilometers below the station and is actually about 7 kilometers behind it. This will swing Dragon up until it's about 400 meters, which is just the distance if you were jogging around one of those quarter-mile laps, directly below the station. This maneuver also takes Dragon into one of 2 checkpoints around the station that requires a set of go, no-go polls from the different control teams. The first checkpoint is called the approach ellipsoid, or the AE, to kind of use that Star Wars imagery more. Think of it as a force field, right? You can't go into this force field until you get permission. It's about 4 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide, 2 kilometers tall. It's essentially a large 3-dimensional oval. Before Dragon is given permission to move inside the approach ellipsoid, the capsule is configured to be on what is known as a 24-hour safe trajectory. That means that if Dragon lost all control to its thrusters for some reason, it would be at least 24 hours before its trajectory would move inside the AE. It kind of gives everyone more time to work through any kind of issues if they were to arise.
Yeah, and this is a familiar checkpoint for us at the International Space Station and in the flight control room there, because the approach ellipsoid and the keep out sphere, which I'm about to talk about, those are both checkpoints that all visiting vehicles come through. So at 6:03 a.m. Pacific time, Dragon will get the go, hopefully, to move inside that keep out sphere. This is the next checkpoint, an imaginary sphere around the station with a radius of 200 meters. And as I mentioned, this is used to monitor all of the arriving and departing vehicles, because it gives us another chance to confirm all of the guidance, navigation, and control systems are working correctly on Crew Dragon before bringing it closer to the space station. And the keep out sphere also has a similar requirement on the orbital trajectory that if Dragon were to, for some reason, lose control of its thrusters, the Crew Dragon itself and the space station would both be safe for 4 orbits, which is about 6 hours, rather than the 24 hours required to enter the approach ellipsoid.
It's crazy to think that this ISS orbits the entire Earth every 90 minutes, right?
16 times a day. Can you 16 sunrises and sunsets?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, that's... Yeah.
I understand why Doug and Bob have covers over the windows, Think of all that sun throughout their sleeping time, waking them up, I want to sleep,
We were talking about that earlier, and Kate referred it as blackout curtains.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
You have to.
So once Dragon arrives at the 400 meters below station, it will be at what is known as waypoint 0. So that's the first checkpoint during our approach. And at this point, the vehicle can hold here, but if everything looks good, and fingers crossed that it does, we can keep moving into waypoint 1.
Yes, and Dragon's movement from waypoint 0 to that waypoint 1 will swing it up and out in front of the station, pausing at a distance of approximately 220 meters. At this point, it will be on what we call the docking axis. If you were to project a beam from the docking port out, they would be in that line. Bob and Doug are headed to the forwardmost port on the station, the Node 2 forward port. It's where Dragon docked just over a year ago on our unmanned Demo 1 mission on March 2nd of 2019. It's where one of 2 international docking adapters are located, installed for these new commercial spacecraft flights, as well as any other future spacecraft that use this IDA.
So before moving into the final waypoint, which is waypoint 2, the crew will execute another manual flight test, just like we saw earlier in the day. It's pretty interesting. It's a pretty exciting thing to watch. This is nearer to the station, so we're calling it near field. And the crew will command a hold at 220 meters, and then they'll conduct a series of maneuvers. First, they will fly Dragon to the center line of the docking approach and line it up precisely with the International Docking Adapter, which they'll be making contact with later in the morning. And then they'll do a number of maneuvers. They're called translational maneuvers. So these are using the Draco thrusters on Dragon to move it along the different axes, and we'll be checking in with the ground on how much propellant is used. Of course, as we've mentioned, Dragon is designed to drive itself, fly itself, I should say, so it's fully autonomous. But this is done to demonstrate the ability to perform any controlled manual maneuvers if that was ever necessary, like braking or retreating. And it also helps determine the position and velocity relative to the space station. So once all of that is complete, Bob and Doug will turn the controls back over to the Dragon flight computer and trust it to take them in for an automated docking. After the flight test is complete, teams in Hawthorne and in Houston will do a quick go, no go to resume the approach and then start to move in toward waypoint 2. Once Dragon starts that approach, they will do a final go, no go for the ultimate moment, docking.
Yes, waypoint 2 is where things get really serious. Waypoint 2, we're only 20 meters away. The ISS looks very, very large at this time, and the spacecraft focuses on aligning its docking system with the International Docking Adapter before proceeding. And right before the end, about 30 seconds before docking, you may hear the crew hands-off point, or CHOP, being called. At this point, the humans have no kind of say in the matter. Any aborts will have to be done automatically by the Dragon spacecraft.
So once we reach that point, we will be looking for that next, the biggest milestone of tomorrow. Well, could be today, wherever you're watching from. The moment we've been waiting for, that's when our crew arrives at the space station. So Dragon will fly in and make contact with the IDA, International Docking Adapter, giving us what we call soft capture. So we're not firmly attached just yet. The soft capture ring will retract, and these sensors will indicate when it's time for 12 hooks to drive in place and give us the hard capture. That's what we're looking for to firmly secure Dragon to the International Space Station. Chris Cassidy, who is currently living aboard the space station as the commander, will manually pressurize the vestibule, or the area between the Dragon hatch and the space station hatch. And power, audio, and data connections will be established from the station to Dragon. Afterward, there will be some leak checks conducted, but not too long afterward, we'll be looking for the hatch opening.
There you go, yeah. And, this hatch opening is going to be a little bit special for astronaut Doug Hurley. This hatch is actually where the space shuttles used to dock as well. And Doug Hurley, he was the pilot for the Space Shuttle Atlantis on STS-135. Is the last space shuttle mission back in 2011. He docked at this very same place on that mission, right? So it's kind of interesting that he's one of the last astronauts to depart the ISS, and he'll be opening up that same hatch that he closed nearly a decade ago. And we've been talking a lot about the ISS over the last couple minutes because they are an important partner in this docking phase. It's a factor in the mix for this dance-like approach. So let's head over to Mission Control Houston for an ISS update from NASA's Courtney Beasley.
Thanks, Michael and Leah. Here in Mission Control Houston, the Orbit 1 team of flight controllers is on console right behind me, led by Flight Director Anthony Varia. At this time, the International Space Station crew is in a period of what's called post-sleep. They're just getting up and getting ready for the day. It'll be an exciting day of work as Cassidy begins prepping systems on board the International Space Station for Crew Dragon's arrival later today. After Cassidy's post-sleep period, he'll start his day with exercise and routine housekeeping. Then around 5:35 a.m. Central Time, Cassidy has a rendezvous conference with ground controllers to review rendezvous procedures that Crew Dragon will be executing later in the morning. He'll then move to begin setting up tools that will be used to conduct leak checks between the space station and Crew Dragon after docking, as well as setting up photo TV equipment to capture that monumental hatch opening later in the day. Once hooks are driven to form a hard mate between Crew Dragon and the station, Cassidy will then work in tandem with Bankin and Hurley to equalize pressure to ensure there's a tight seal between Crew Dragon and the International Space Station before they open the hatch to greet their new crew members who will become crew members of the Expedition 63 crew. Until then, the International Space Station systems are still a go for an on-time docking of Crew Dragon later today. Back to you guys in Hawthorne.
Thanks so much, Courtney. Glad to hear everything is going well over there in Houston. International Space Station itself currently flying over the South Pacific Ocean, and it will soon be approaching Chile. So definitely making its way around the world tonight, and Dragon is catching up.
Exactly, right. We saw it on screen probably about an hour ago. The ISS cruise is waking up. It's 11:55 here. It's almost a new day in Hawthorne, California. Doug and Bob are still resting, dreaming, hopefully getting some shut-eye and some well-deserved rest after a momentous day. In the meantime, we're going to take a little break over here, play some sleep music for y'all. Please stay tuned. We'll have more updates when we come back.